Hi everyone, my name is Selvin and welcome to Selvin Student 101. In today's video, I'm going to give you some inside tips on how to nail those Oxbridge interviews. Early December is interview period for Oxbridge, so in this video, I'm going to give you my inside tips on how to nail that interview and secure a place. Let's get into it. Firstly, congratulations on actually applying to Oxbridge in the first place. It's so much additional work. From the additional application forms, to having to prepare and do that test, and then having to actually go and do an interview. It's so much extra preparation and so much extra work. Unfortunately, it's the interview that ultimately decides whether or not you get a place, no matter how good the other parts of your application are. Therefore, I want to give you some tips that I wish I knew when I was in the application process. I'll start off with some tips for all subjects, and then I'll give some tips specifically for economics. So my first tip is to make sure you have done your research before the interview. Have a look online and see if the college you've applied to gives an interview structure for your subject, as well as practice questions. If not, email the admissions tutor directly. The worst they can say is no, and it could be massively beneficial for you. If that doesn't get you anywhere, you can even message someone on LinkedIn who is currently doing the subject that you want to do at the college you want to do it at. Again, the worst they can say is no, and you'll actually be really surprised at how helpful people can be. They may even give you some golden specific tips. The sooner you research or ask, the more time you'll have to prepare in the best way you can. Now on to my second tip. My second tip is that you really should do some sort of practice interview. This definitely does not have to be with some sort of paid service. I personally believe that it's very hard to find something actually worth the money, given that I didn't use any of these services. Unless the people coaching you have very recently gone through the application process, it's not going to be very helpful for you. Instead, I asked my teachers to have practice interviews with me. Once you actually have an idea on the interview structure, you can then tell them how you would like to be interviewed. The exact content they examine is not the most vital part. It's actually getting used to articulating your thoughts out loud. This is because we generally aren't used to this, as we often write our work down in essays or assignments as opposed to discussing them out loud. While having practice interviews, try to treat it as if it was your actual interview. Do some good preparation beforehand and try to keep a formal tone like you would in an interview. Another thing to be wary of is how you're communicating. You want to keep eye contact, speak at a good pace, and try to come across as friendly. Because your interviewers are going to be working with you for several years, they will subconsciously prefer candidates who they could get on well with. Remember, you don't have to perfectly answer all the questions, they mainly just want to see the ways you think. Given the current situation, interviews are very likely to be online. Therefore, you're going to want to practice with your teachers in this sort of setting. And now, on to my third tip. This is to try and be as calm as you can in the period running up to the interview. Believe in yourself. You have done so well in the first place to get an interview. Make sure you eat well, get some good exercise in, and sleep well. Don't overload yourself with doing loads and loads of work, whether that be for school or the interview. Ask your teachers well in advance if you can have some relief from your deadlines so that you can prepare for the interview. Ask your family if they cannot use the Wi-Fi while you're doing the interview. And also, understand that not getting in is not the end of the world. If you put so much weight on getting into Oxbridge, it will make you so nervous and stressed and will likely make you perform worse in the interview. It will also make you a lot more upset if you don't get in. So essentially, you want to sort out all of your interview logistics beforehand to minimize the possibility of last-minute problems arising, causing loads of stress and anxiety. And now, the rest of this video will be on tips specific to economics, but also might apply to some of the more quantitative subjects, such as the sciences. My first economics tip is that you should keep up to date with current affairs in the world. For example, find some countries that interest you and briefly learn about their development and their monetary and fiscal policy. Then, try to tie this in with the economics knowledge you know. You actually never know what you might get asked in an interview. Interviewers will be really impressed if you can apply your economics knowledge to the real world while simultaneously showing your passion for the subject. My second economics tip is to be very comfortable with graph sketching. Graph sketching questions are so common in economics interviews, I can almost guarantee you will be asked one. I think they're quite unlikely to ask about the trigonometric graphs, because they're barely used in economics. Instead, they like to ask about quotient functions such as this. In order to nail the graph sketching, you want to be able to show where it's increasing or decreasing. You want to show what happens as the graph goes to plus or minus infinity. You want to show where the graph's turning points are. You want to show where the graph's asymptotes are. And you want to show where the graph intercepts the axes. If you can do all of these things, you'll be able to do really well in the graph sketching question. It's completely fine to take your time while you do this as well. Your calculations and thought processes are a lot more important than getting everything 100% correct. I definitely did not get my graph 100% in the interview, and they help you along in the process. So there you have it. These are my tips for Oxbridge interviews. I hope that they can come in useful for everyone. Feel free to email me at selvinvlog@gmail.com if you have any questions or want some advice. If this video was helpful for you, please share it with your friends and family. It would mean so much to me. Thanks very much for watching, and see you soon!